So cultural exchange is something you hear about, that, oh, the arts help us learn about other cultures. When we talked about cultural exchange, sure, there were the artists we were putting on stage and the audience was going to learn something. But I said the cultural exchange was actually the back end. It was filling out the visa forms. It was my lighting director and the lighting director from Singapore or Australia or Brazil.
And so from a culture perspective, since you talk about culture, like I always think about culture in the context of company culture. Like, hey, what's our employee experience? What's our franchisee experience? We set it up with our vision and values. You've experienced international cultures living in Beijing, traveling into small pockets of China, then living in Hong Kong, now living in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So you've got sort of the country culture, you've got the city, you've got the organization, then you've got your divisional departmental culture as well. And then now in your case, being part of a campus, you've got the student culture, the campus culture, the athletics. So help me sort of bring all of those things into focus.
Just a few of those,
Yeah.
Just all those.
I mean, your worldly experience, but then you're building a team and you're trying to execute a mission. So you've got your own internal culture as well. And how do you like kind of, I guess, pick the pieces of it? And does it require somebody at the top championing those elements of what the culture is? Is it just something that evolves over time and through history?
I think I'm so grateful for 20 years living in Greater China, 16 years in Beijing, 4 years in Hong Kong, because if nothing else, it teaches you humility. You are a guest in another place. You don't know what you don't know, and every day is a learning opportunity. That is the best boot camp for being a leader, because it teaches you never have all the answers, and you need to surround yourself with good advisors. You know, I think Lauren Michaels from Saturday Night Live had the quote, "If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room." And so how do you surround yourself with people that have more expertise in something, that you can call them mentors? But then you have to process all that information and make a decision about how to move forward. And I think a lot of great leaders, that's what you do. You take in the information, you survey the landscape, you have people saying, well, I think we should do this. Well, I think we shouldn't do that. In the end, you have the responsibility and the accountability to make the decision to take the next step. And I think that working in different cultures internationally, you know, Ping Pong Productions, we toured artists to more than 50 countries on 5 continents.
Wow.
Every country and culture had a different way of doing things. We had to adapt to that.
Right, because there's the customs of how you do business. You know, you don't want to offend somebody. There's the etiquette component.
Yeah, we talk about, so cultural exchange is something you hear about, that, oh, the arts help us learn about other cultures. And when we talked about cultural exchange, sure, there were the artists we were putting on stage and the audience was going to learn something. But I said the cultural exchange was actually the back end. It was filling out the visa forms. It was my lighting director and the lighting director from Singapore or Australia or Brazil. They were engaged in cultural exchange because how they set up a show, how they marketed to their audiences were different in each place. And we had to figure out how we were going to come together for the shared goal of the show must go on.
And you mentioned to me before we started filming, one of the experiences you had going from Beijing to Hong Kong as a leader was there was almost some cultural norms that were dynamics, or I should say cultural dynamics of the organizations that were different. The employee mindset approach. Talk about that.
Exactly. So in Beijing, you know, I was in Beijing in the lead up to the Beijing Olympics. So it was just the best entrepreneurial energy you've ever seen. It was, we've arrived on the world stage, we're building, you know, that's when Alibaba was starting up, WeChat, all of these things. So the energy was totally creative and totally wild because everybody was up for big risk, big reward, let's try it. And running a tiny little small nonprofit like Ping Pong Productions, my team, there were 5 of us around a table, you know, from Beijing and Henan and Shanghai, and we would just hash it all out together. It was very egalitarian, very collaborative. And then I get to Hong Kong, which is a much more developed economic market. It's a former British colony. And I'm no longer working in a 5-person startup. I'm working in the largest arts and culture development in the world. 100 acres of land, building 5 performing arts centers, 2 museums, retail, dining, entertainment. I have 1,000 people reporting to me. So I go into a little meeting thinking I'm going to hash it out around the table. And I'm getting blank stares because I'm the leader and they're expecting me to tell them what to do so they can go do it. And
Which
it's
is
a much
interesting,
more
'cause
hierarchical
I would have
place.
almost expected the reverse. Coming out of communist China, that it would have been people waiting around to be told what to do versus going to Hong Kong, a capitalist society. But to your point, you had the opposite experience.
180-degree opposite. China,
Interesting.
even though the name of the one-party rule is still communist, the way it operates is incredibly market-driven, entrepreneurial, and it's been in such rapid transition. And anything in transition is very creative. So people are out there, renegades. Everybody's got a startup. My
People are
taxi
moving and
driver had a
shaking.
startup, moving and shaking. You know, this person has a dance company. This person has a startup. This person has a restaurant. It's nonstop. Whereas Hong Kong is more established. So there's a way to do things. And in Beijing, no didn't mean no. It meant ask someone else. In Hong Kong, rule of law, no means no, which has some good points to it too.
Sure.
But it also meant you came up against different kinds of barriers.
Wow. And then how about then transitioning back to the States? What was that dynamic like for you, or adjustment, culture shock for you to kind of insert yourself as a leader in a campus culture, but it's an independent arts organization affiliated
part
with
of
the
the
UNC
campus.
organization, university.
Yeah. So taking that mindset of I'm moving to a foreign country was crucial. The humility, beginner's mind. I'm here to learn. I've never lived in North Carolina. I've never really lived in the American South. We grew up in D.C. I went to school on the East Coast, Northeast. And so coming in with humility that I'm here to learn and to bring skills to maximize assets that are here and work together to take things to the next level. I've never worked in a university. I've never worked in a state organization.
So how much observing versus inserting do you find yourself?
That was a big thing I learned from Hong Kong that I took to my next job at North Carolina. In Hong Kong, I came in with humility to listen, and I waited too long to start to make changes. I didn't want to come in and just bull in a china shop, start crashing things and changing and not paying attention to why people make decisions for a reason. So you got to understand before you change them. I waited too long, and then it was much harder to make. They're like, what are you trying to do now? Whereas with North Carolina, I came in and was like, I'm going to give myself 3 months, ask all the questions, get to know, do all the listening tours that I need to do. And then we're doing a strategic plan right out the gate, because I don't want to wait and then suddenly you can't be a prophet in your own community anymore.
Right.
I wanted to grasp the luxury of newness
Yes.
to start making those changes.
That's good. And I think we talked again on the way over about, I think it was your middle school English teacher talked about asking questions and being curious. And it's not about knowing the answer. It's about
bringing it out of
bringing
people.
it out. Where did that, would that resonated with you, and I guess has stuck with you as a leader to then apply throughout? But to hear that from an English teacher and be able to make the connection, or at least over time make that connection and apply it in a leadership capacity.